Business of Property podcast. I'm Simon, and I've been investing in property for over 20 years. And if you're an active landlord or planning your next property investment, this podcast is for you. Nearly 4 years ago now, Stuart and I published a few episodes around the theme of replacing your salary using a property business. We looked at rent-to-rent as a strategy for doing this, and also building your own portfolio through purchases. And for that side of it, we looked at both an HMO approach, so buying HMO properties, and buying simple vanilla buy-to-let properties as well. Now, these episodes were numbers 80, 82, and 86. I'll include links to them in the show notes if you want to go back and have a listen. And I recommend you do, actually, because there's going to be, or in fact, back then, those episodes include more sort of explanation of the reasons and the sort of thoughts that we had around this process and why you might and how you might do this, which I'm not really going to look into today so much. Today is much more a sort of bringing it up to date and thinking about how the world has changed. Because since 4 years ago, a lot has changed. Interest rates have increased a little, and we've had quite a bit of inflation, including for rents, but not so much for house prices, which have had a sort of silent crash, if you like, where inflation has outpaced the price growth of the actual properties that we're now seeing on the market, effectively meaning that they've fallen in value in real terms, hence the silent crash, because the actual numbers you see haven't gone down, but the value has gone down. We've also got some regulation changes coming very soon, which may change investor outlooks, I think, but probably doesn't feed in too much to the sort of cold, hard numbers involved in replacing your salary from property. So I don't think that will affect things too much for what I'm covering today. But the other elements clearly will. It's a very different world from the financial point of view of those things affecting property investment. So, as I said, I have decided that it is time to revisit the sort of whole question with an updated view in our current world. And today, I'm going to look at the approach of using or building, I should say, a buy-to-let portfolio as a way to replace a salary. Is it even possible now? And if so, what would you actually need to invest in order to make it happen? Before I look at the new figures for today, I think I'll give a quick recap of 4 years ago. As I said, do go back and listen to the old episodes for all the details and extra information between these figures. But just in case you don't do that, here's a quick summary. So the average salary was £30,000 a year, works out to about £2,500 per month. And the average property that we looked at buying as a buy-to-let investment property had a purchase price of £250,000, plus stamp duty and other purchasing expenses, legal fees, etc., etc. Our predicted rent for that property was £1,000 per month, and we were able to get a 75% loan-to-value mortgage, requiring a deposit of £66,000. We also included a £5,000 budget for a refurb, and all of this together meant that it required a £79,000 cash investment to actually make the purchase happen. And given the rent that I just mentioned, it ended up working out at a monthly profit of £435. And from that, we concluded that you'd need a portfolio of about 6 buy-to-let properties to replace that £30,000 salary with income from property. And that in turn required a £474,000 investment upfront to actually purchase that portfolio in order to replace the salary. Of course, you'd probably do this over a period of time rather than actually having that money entirely upfront. And of course, if you're actually on a £30,000 salary, trying to collect that much investment might be tricky, but we're going to gloss over that. Well, we glossed over it then, and we're going to gloss over it now as well. But just to say one more figure, that previous scenario had an ROI, a return on investment of 6.5%. So let's bring these figures up to date for the current times, the current world we are living in. So first of all, the big headliner, the purchase price of an average home at the moment has gone up a little, and it's now at £298,000, plus all the same before, stamp duty, which is actually more now than it was then, and all the other appropriate fees. I've kept repair costs at £5,000. Not sure whether that should have gone up a bit as well, but for simplicity, I've kept that the same. I've also increased legal fees just a little, though, so that they're a bit more in line with current costs. However, thankfully, the rent has also increased, and my estimate now for this sort of average house is £1,400 per month. And I think as an average, that might be erring a little bit on the low side, but anyway, that's the number I've gone with for this thought experiment. This means we can still get a 75% loan-to-value mortgage, assuming a 5-year fix and hence reduced rental cover requirements. So we end up needing a deposit of £74,500, resulting in total purchase costs, i.e. cash that we have to put into it, not just equity that we end up with, but cash we put into the process of buying, of just under £101,000. That's quite a lot more than 4 years ago. But the real kicker is in the mortgage payments we'd be making now. 4 years ago, we used an estimated interest rate of 2.7%. That just seems crazy thinking about it today, but 2.7%. Instead, today, I've used a figure of 4.4%, and that might be slightly on the optimistic side. But anyway, 4.4% is what I've gone for this. And that means, after some basic running expenses, we're only making a profit of £370 per month, which is an ROI again of 4.4%. So our buy-to-let property purchased now, rather than 4 years ago, is making us 15% less profit. We've got higher investment requirements, much higher rent, yet lower profit. And to make our goal of replacing an average salary even harder, the average salary has, of course, gone up in the last 4 years as well. Previously, we were aiming for a salary of £30,000, but now the average full-time salary is apparently £38,000. This gives us a higher monthly target, working out at £3,166, roughly, per month. And yet we've only got that £370 of profit per month. So to replace the average salary, we'd now need 9 of our investment buy-to-let properties. Not just 5 or 6, but 9. And as you've already heard, the capital investment required has gone up. So the capital investment for the whole portfolio to replace just a £38,000 salary would be £909,000 of upfront capital cash to purchase the portfolio. Now that's obviously significantly more than our previous requirement of £474,000. In fact, it's even significantly more if you adjust that previous figure for inflation. So despite the silent property crash and rents pretty much keeping up with inflation, maybe even doing slightly better, the change in mortgage rates is more than enough to compensate for those and still make this investment harder. So if your goal is replacing a salary, which is another way of saying that you're investing for current cash flow, which is quite a common sort of objective or goal in property investment, buy-to-let is now an even worse plan than it was 4 years ago. And it wasn't the best plan available back then either. However, thankfully, cash flow isn't the only way that buy-to-let investments make money. Do go back a couple of episodes and have a listen to episode 274 if you want more information on that. So, bringing this to a close for today, there are links in the show notes to the episodes from 4 years ago, which I found fascinating listening back to. I do recommend you go and have a listen to those. Plus a link to the average buy-to-let calculations from today. So they will take you through to, or that link will take you through to a pre-made calculation on PATMA's free buy-to-let profit calculator. And if you'd like to get in touch, if you think any of the numbers I've used today are wrong or should be different, or perhaps that buy-to-let can still work as a cash flowing investment, then let me know. You can reach me on show@thebusinessofproperty.com. But that's it for today. Thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to speaking to you again next time.